Hey guys, welcome to Matt Does Stuff. Today I've got a project which thankfully will be indoors because it's Baltic outside, and making something in my workshop today will be miserable. So what I'm going to be doing is making an infill piece slash piece of architrave, and I'll be scribing that to cover an unsightly joint in the sort of window frame that I've got in my kitchen. And that window frame looks a bit like this. So I'll be going through the process I'm going to do to make that infill piece, how I'm going to scribe it, what scribing is. So let's head over to the house and we'll get started. Okay, so this is the area where I'm going to be making the infill architrave piece for. You can see that there's this piece of wood there above the window. They've obviously used that as a filler. What I want to do is cover that area over, because what I can't do very well is fill in the sort of big gap there that's expanding foam at the moment. When I say at the moment, it's always going to be like that. So what I'm going to do is have a bit of wood which comes down and covers that gap and runs along the edge of the window. I lose a bit on the window, but I think it'll neaten it up quite a lot. I don't know whether you can tell also from the video that I'm showing you now, but the actual window frame is not plumb or square, so it has a slant. Sort of this side is lower than this side, and it's got a bit of a bow in the middle. Imperceptible probably on the camera, but it definitely is there, and I'll show you that in a minute when I put a straight edge up against it. But essentially what I'm going to be doing is mapping that contour of the wall onto the infill piece that I make, and that is what's called scribing. So I'm going to pop out to the shed and make myself a piece of architrave, and then we'll come back and I'll show you all about scribing. Okay, so to make this infill piece slash piece of architrave, I'm just going to be using some MDF. So I've got some 12mm MDF. I think sort of standard widths or standard thicknesses for normal architrave and skirting board and things is probably 18mm, but I haven't got any bits like that long enough lying around the shed, so I'm just using some 12. I think that'll be fine for what I'm doing. I'm going to run this through the table saw in order to get the width, and then I'm going to be using my router table that I built like a few weeks ago in a previous episode. You can check that out if you want to know how it's built, and I'll be using a round over bit in that just to create the profile on the edge. Give it a quick sand down. Really simple build on that piece of architrave slash filler. Now I've built my, when I've made the piece of like infill slash architrave, I thought I'd give explaining what scribing was a go before I head back into the house. So scribing that I'm going to be doing is matching a piece of wood that I'm going to be adding to what is essentially a wonky wall, so or a ceiling. So if you can imagine that this is my wall, and that has got this profile exaggerated. If your walls are that bad, you've got something wrong, but my house is pretty wonky. I do have some wonky walls, and then you offer that straight edge up to the wall, you inevitably get gaps. and you could fill those gaps. That's one method of doing it, or depending on the application, that might not work as well. Or you could use what is scribing, and that is where we transfer this profile onto the edge of this piece of wood. So if this was an infill piece for like the end of a kitchen cabinet or something like that, between your kitchen cabinet and your wall, you'd need to take account of the distance and how far you are away in one place, and then work out how big your offset needed to be. I'm not doing that in this case. I've just got a piece of wood that I'm adding. So all I really want to do is just map that profile onto this piece of wood. What I need to understand from this sort of mock setup is where my biggest gap is. So my biggest gap is around here. So I've got 23 mil on this sort of example here. And what I need to then do is have something which runs along this edge and transfers onto that edge. So you can use a number of things. There are a number of scribing tools on the market, specialist bits of kit you can buy for Screwfix. I think they're around 30 quid. For the amount of scribing I do, not required. And then or you can use a technique I'm going to use, which is just a block of wood of the right size. So I'm going to cut a block of wood which is 25 mil, and then use that as my template. So once you've got your block, you need to offer up your whatever it is you're trying to scribe against the wall, and get your block that you just cut to size, and with a pencil on the outside of it, you need to run the inside of it down the wall, and then you just follow the contour down, and you're basically transferring that shape at a set distance onto here. So if I zoom in on that, you can see this line here is that contour mapped on here. And then once you've done that all the way down, you can cut that out with jigsaw or whatever it is you want to do, and hopefully that profile will then match in to what you've got over there. So I'm just going to cut this out with a jigsaw, and I'll show you that that worked, hopefully, fingers crossed. So I've cut that on the jigsaw. You can see I've gone a bit awry here. I was trying to do it really quickly because it is Baltic out here. But you can see how this piece, the piece that I've cut now matches the contour of the bit of wood. So that's the sort of process I'm going to use for the bit of architrave inside the kitchen. You can see here where I've offered the architrave up, or the filler piece up. I've got quite a big gap at one end compared to the other. Probably could have filled it, but I think scribing it, trying to get a bit closer, is the right answer. So as I mentioned when I was out in the shed, just measuring the offset, so I know how big to cut my block of wood. Once I've cut my block of wood the right size, just using it to follow the contour of that window niche / alcove. I forgot to film me cutting this bit, but you can see
I've managed to get a little bit closer. I actually wasn't overly pleased with this, but I have taken up a lot of the gap. The camera work is also a bit shoddy, apologies for that. But I have taken up the gap now. It was around 7 or 8 mil, but now probably down to like 2 or 3, so definitely within caulking distance. So once I was happy with it in place, I used some grip fill just to stick it in position, and then gave it an undercoat of Zinsser Bin, my go-to undercoat. Added some caulk around the edges, some decorator's caulk, and then gave it a final paint. I like to do the caulk before I put the final coat of paint on, because then you can paint over the caulk, which dries a slightly different colour than your paint.
Needs another coat of paint, but generally pretty pleased with the way that's turned out. End of the day, here I'm at the stuff. Today I've shown you how I've made an infill piece / piece of architrave, and how I've scribed that to my wonky walls in my kitchen. A job that needed doing, but now it's done. So to celebrate that job getting done, obviously a beer. So today, if anyone's interested, it's a Moore Beer Company Batalus Double Stout. Only a little can, because this is 9.5%. That'll definitely warm me up. Oh yeah. Remember, you stay safe, get some stuff done.